40 years ago are still in the business, so they were 40 years younger. And here's the thing. My customers in 1978 were not 60-year-old men. They were 30 and 40 and 50-year-old men. And so I would say 80% of my customers were under 50. And the decades rolled by, and everybody got older. The people who bought it, the people who made it, the people who sold it, and the people who wrote about it all got old. Everybody that writes for Stereophile, or almost everybody who writes for Stereophile, is over 60 or definitely over 50. So where are the young ones, you know? So I wrote this piece, but I said, the thing is, if somebody said to me 10 years ago, what is the future of high-end audio, or let's say 12 years ago, what is the future of high-end audio? I'd say, I don't see a future for high-end audio because everybody's getting old and there isn't a generations coming up behind us. But thanks to headphones and turntables, I see lots of guys, especially in Can Jam, it skews the other way. It's a whole younger group of people. So that was the beginning of saying, yeah, there is a future to high-end audio. And then there's companies like U-Turn Audio, a turntable company based, I think, near Boston. And those guys, the three founders of the company, are still, they started a company 5 years ago. None of them are 30 years old yet. And they're making turntables in the United States. So the people on the panel are the current young generation. Cynthia, well, this is E.J. Sarmento from Wyred for Music, Wyred for Sound, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. And then there's Cynthia Bishop, and then there's my old pal Sean Casey and EveAnna Manley. So they are the young guns. But Cynthia's not a young gun specifically. She's a customer. And she's a friend of mine, and she did an Audiophiliac video for me. And she's 22 years old, and she is an audiophile. She is a real audiophile. She didn't just buy high-end audio equipment. She is a bona fide audiophile. So I was thinking, we need more of her. We need more she's 22 years old. We need more 22-year-old women, more 22-year-old men. And how do we get there? That is the subject of this seminar. And I'm running out of things to say, so you guys are going to tell me how to do that. but seriously, so EJ, you can just each introduce yourself. And
so I'm EJ from Wyred for Sound. I started the company a little bit over 10 years ago. I've always been into music and making great sound. I'm 33 years old, so I started it young. But I enjoy music just because it can make or break any event or atmosphere that you may have, no matter what you're doing. So it's something I've always done, indoor, outdoor, whatever it is. I seek music. So I enjoy that, and I love what I do, and share my passion for audio. And yeah, it's a little bit about me.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, before I start talking, how can I get this microphone working? Make sure that I'm heard.
It's working. No? Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Cynthia Bishop. I'm 22 years old, and like Steve said, I'm an audiophile customer. I got into audiophile equipment because I have an older friend of the family, and he has Magnaplaner 3.3s. He has, 2 preamp. He's got 500-watt mono blocks, just absolute great sound system. And I didn't know what high-end audio was until I heard his sound system for the first time. I went over his house for dinner one day, and he was playing some elegant music in the background for dinner, but it wasn't until he played something that I liked that got me hooked. It was, he has a classical vinyl collection of albums, and there was a classical song that I hadn't heard for years that I had wanted to find. I didn't remember the name of it. So I was like, do you have this? And I started humming the tune, and he said, yes, that's Mauve Lost by Smetana. And I said, let's listen to it. So he had the analog Czech Philharmonic recording, played it, and I just closed my eyes, and I listened. And I didn't do anything else, didn't get distracted, and just listened to the music. And I was immersed, completely immersed, and it sounded like I was live listening to the Philharmonic at the concert. And that's what really hooked me, was actually hearing something that I wanted to hear. And I think that if you're hearing something that your heart is into, then that's really what's going to hook you. And so that's how I got started with it. And I got my own system now.
Great. My name is Sean Casey, Zoo Audio. I'm not so young. There's a walker behind me. I got sucked into sound really early. My dad in the 70s, before the recession in the 70s, was raced boats, little runabouts, 18-footers, and I loved the sound of big block Chevy engines, full-blown, hauling ass down the water. And I also got sucked in by Black Sabbath, Public Image Limited, the Sex Pistols, Sounds of Nature. I just like listening to stuff. I also like to make stuff. And I get a kick out of physics. So here I am. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Okay.
I'm EveAnna Manley. I also ride motorcycles. I've had a walker before too. I was telling the guys, you really know if you're old if you show up and say hi and you all start talking about your health problems. Then you know you're really old. So, when I was in high school, I was one of those band geeks, you know, and a super band geek playing saxophone, and I was an avid record collector as well. And when I was in high school, I worked really hard after school in summer jobs to save up money to buy saxophone and to buy my first mid-fi HiFi system. And I remember walking into stores in Atlanta and not being taken very seriously because I was like 15 years old or something like that. And but I listened to some systems and heard what the salesmen were saying, and then I was one of those real asshole customers who went online and bought, in the back of Stereo Review and called up, telephone order and bought all the stuff out of state, of course. I don't do that anymore.
I never heard that, but that's...
I was one of those asshole audiophiles. Yeah. So what happened, I was in college and I was in New York City, and it was getting really, I was just getting depressed, and all the music and films were coming from California, and it was calling me, and I took a semester off and drove out to California, and through some connections, I met David and Luke Manley at Vacuum Tube Logic of America, and I interviewed for a job. I'd do anything. I just needed to, fund the rest of my education and go back. So I had to work, I walked into the factory in Chino, California, and I'm like, what the hell are those things? They're like, well, those are tube monoblock amplifiers. I'm like, is that like a receiver? I mean, I didn't know anything about audiophiles. And so I started working there and learning how to build stuff, and eventually David Manley and I got married, and long history of the companies and all that. We split VTL apart from Manley Labs, and I was running the factory by that time. I was in my 20s, and been doing all this stuff ever since. So that's what I do. I build gear, but I started really young, so I have a lot of young stories to tell.
So EveAnna, so right away I got a question then. So do you sell, I don't know, do you sell through dealers or direct?
We sell through dealers, although, the bigger part of Manley Labs is a pro audio world recording stuff. So we make microphones and equalizers and things for the recording studio, and that's like 85% of the business. And that's definitely, there's a lot of young people in the recording business.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, how do we get the young people into the audiophile business? But I think you hit upon it. It's, turntables and personal listening, I think is one way to start.
So but you don't sell to consumers direct?
Not really, although the HiFi dealers for us right now for the audiophile equipment, I mean, Upscale Audio in SoCal is like our best dealer, but we're kind of sporadically hit across the nation, so.
But if somebody went to Upscale Audio and then called you, could they get a better price?
No, I'd be loyal to Kevin on that one.
Couldn't resist.
I'd behave on that.
Okay.
We do have some stuff listed on eBay.
Okay.
B stock.
Because I'm really starting to get the impression, because I worked in retail for 16 years selling high-end audio. So I see, the business from that perspective. But I'm really starting to get the impression that, direct sales are where the market wants it to be.
I can answer that. We've been improving our marketing in the last couple of years. And I trained my young nephew when he was a high school kid. He used to come out and work for me. And then I trained him into marketing activities more. And then I kicked him out of the company. And he was hurt. I'm like, Chris, you got to go. He's like, why? I'm like, because you've only worked for Auntie Van your whole life. And you only know this little world here. And you need to go work for another company and see. I want to go work for another company.
Switch.
Anyone? It's like I've grown up in a kind of myopic little world myself, and so I didn't want that to happen to Chris. So he went to work for another big audio company and then created his own marketing firm, and then I've been able to rehire him. But he, he's 32 or something now, but yeah, he started with me when he was like 15. So one way to get young people in the business is to hire them and to listen to them and to, to feel Chris's energy and let him just put his vision through for my company.
I just think that this, what used to be called the generation gap, is part of the problem, that since the industry is still predominantly old, younger people don't relate to it. It doesn't fit their, what they want, except for Cynthia, of course. But she's the exception. But, so Sean, you're almost exclusively direct, right?
Yeah, we're direct.
Okay. And that's working for you.
Yeah, you get to talk to the customer directly, help them out. It's fun. It works for us.
So you personally speak to the customers?
Yeah, there's 4 of us that can talk shop, but yeah, I help out.
Okay, good to know. And you sell through dealers, right?
Well, we're mostly direct. So we do have some dealers, but in the States we're direct, and we love fabricating as well. So we actually build everything in house, and people can call and gauge your system, and we can make recommendations and build whatever they want and ship it from there.
So maybe, because I am sort of leading the witnesses here, that maybe selling direct, beyond the actual business part of the transaction with the money part and making a sale, is that you're in direct contact with your customers. You're speaking to them, and there's not this dealer that's the intermediary anymore.
You become friends, and dealers these days, I think, are not what they used to be. And of course, there's the good ones, but the support that we can provide is far better than what the dealers could do, because we're the ones making it. We know it inside and out. So a lot of dealers have 20 different brands or whatever, and they're limited to what they have their hands on. So we've done well with direct, and we really have fun with it.
But can you give me any examples of products that came about, or changes in your products that
came
about, because you're talking to your customers all the time?
So for instance, our STP, our old preamp, had a smaller VFD display. It's a double line one this big.
What's that kind of display?
VFD.
What's that?
A vacuum tube, a fluorescent.
Okay.
See,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so it's a smaller display that's hard to see at distances. So customers always call, I can't see it. I want a magnifying glass, this and that. So we actually came up with a new one. It's here at the show. It's debuting this weekend, and the customer happened to walk by, which is from 10 years ago.
The guy who complained.
The guy that complained and took a picture of a magnifying glass, joking about it. And so I drug him in the room. I got something for you, So
throw away your magnifying glass.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. None needed here. So you definitely get feedback from improvements to make and things to change, which what I really enjoy.
And when people break your stuff?
What do you mean break it?
Blow it up.
Well, then
the cat, peed in it. Or something.
That's happened. It's happened. Cats sit on warm things and don't control things. We've had geckos inside, from different areas. So we've seen all kinds.
And EveAnna, and do you talk to your customers?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm pretty much the conduit between the factory and the customer, more on the pre-sale side of things, because I have a really good tech support department. Led by a cranky old guy named Paul.
Okay.
And he's been with me more than 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what kind of things happen in there? What kind of questions do they ask you?
Sometimes a lot of questions that they could have read on the website.
like
It's
how
like,
to,
oh,
how to
I'm
turn it
your
on.
personal Google concierge today. No.
Okay, well, what
Sometimes.
what are the good questions that lead to something?
I want a steelhead phono stage, but it's $8,000, and then, younger people don't have $8,000, so we developed the $2,500 one, the Chinook, and that became really popular. So in order to do that, we had to figure out how to build it for a quarter of the price. There's math involved in this stuff, very simple math. And keep it made in America too, so. I think trying to, I don't like this crazy, like, here's your preamplifier and it's $25,000. It's like, wow, you multiply by a lot of numbers to get to that price from build cost,
But, I think it's interesting. I didn't set out to do it, but the three of you make your stuff in the U.S.
Yeah,
And do you get feedback from your customers that is important to them?
very much so.
Yeah?
Yeah, it is. And we market that too. It's like, and we're trying to fight the good fight and manufacture in America, definitely. And the quality, but when you source stuff overseas, you lose control over what you're getting, and sometimes you get 2 shipments in that are like, yeah, that's all right, and the third one like, oh my God, who built this? So it's really difficult to maintain control and quality overseas. It's better for us when we can build it in Chino, not China.
And deal with your suppliers in a more direct way.
Oh, definitely. Like, stop scratching these faceplates. Like, walk in there and yell at them.
So
In Spanish.
In Spanish.
No riadas, por favor.
Okay.
Cuidada.
And Sean, that's the same thing for you with your, you do everything.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Pretty much everything in yours is U.S. made, right?
Yeah, there's a couple things that the U.S. is too expensive for us, but 95% of what we make is made within a short drive. So connectors are the bitchy little parts that we have to go to Taiwan for.
And EJ, you're...
Yeah, I mean, everything we have is either made in-house or in the county. So we actually started doing more sheet metal stuff in-house. We have our own board stuffing machines, and we used to sub those out and spend more time fixing things than building it ourselves, because you have high gain circuits that are low noise, like phono stages. The remaining flux residue and stuff causes problems, and they don't understand that. They build sprinkler timers. So for that, it doesn't matter. So we bought the machinery and started building it ourselves. So, and then we go direct to keep out the markup of dealers. So a lot of this product here has a lot of built-in markup, and that's why their multipliers seem out of whack. But, people have to get paid for what they do and the support they offer, but I think a lot of people love to buy online, and you can call in and we can directly support it and build it all in-house and offer the best value. I think that's what everybody's after as time goes on.
So Cynthia, how did this happen? Because it's such an anomaly that someone as young as you and the sex that you are, it's just weird. So it's like, in other words, can we make more of you? What would it take? What can these companies do? Tell them, please.
So I think that there's a lot of issues when it comes to why young people and women are not into audiophile equipment. They have different interests. A lot of them have never even heard the word audiophile before, never even heard high-end equipment, and that's how I heard it, was through exposure. So I think a lot of it has to do with exposure. I think that before we talk about the solutions, we need to talk about what the issues are. Some of the issues are, one thing Steve told me about was that in New York, out of all of the dealers there, only one is under the age of 40 that runs the dealership. So hiring more young people in the dealerships, maybe putting ads out for people within a certain age group, and actually hiring young people would help immensely, because then by word of mouth through other young people, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their friends of friends, etc. This sounds great, and then they're going to go over their house and listen. And then maybe through that, or another option would be through a college internship, they could do something, and then maybe send some components home with those young people, let them audition them for their friends, and then there's exposure there. So those are a couple of ideas. Another one is maybe a dealership could put a system in a college rec room or something. So lots of people are passing by and actually listening to that high-end audio. It would cost money, but I think if you're wanting to get the younger generation into it, it's going to be an investment. And I think that in order to make sure that we pass this on to the next generation, that's very important. So as far as dealerships go, I think that a lot of them now are streaming audio, so people can come in and listen to what they want to hear when they want to hear it. But I also think that they're playing a lot of music that they like more than the younger generation like. So like, you know, someone my age, me excluded, because I like stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 80s, mainly because I grew up listening to it. But a lot of people my age don't listen to that. They don't really listen to what their parents listen to. They listen to more new age stuff. And I think if they were to go into a dealership or a shop and they hear, you know, like Dark Side of the Moon, they're going to be like, what's that? Because they've never heard it. And it's a great album, but they don't know what that is, and it's not from their generation. So they're not going to have their heart into that as much as they would if they listened to something that they would like. I think you need to hook them in with some type of bait, which is actually listening to something, streaming something that they want to hear. Once you've hooked them in, they know what it sounds like, then you can get them and educate them. Hey, this sounds, you know, even better over LP or a physical medium, and then they'll actually start purchasing that. And it's all about hooking them in, getting the exposure, hooking them in, and then once they're hooked, then that's it. So.
But have you actually hooked any of your friends?
So far I have a couple of people, a couple of friends at work that have been getting more into it since I've been talking about it. And one of them just purchased an LP for like $300 of his favorite band just because it was not available anywhere anymore. And I was like, you know, that's expensive, really expensive.
Does he have a turntable?
He does. I don't know what model. It's a Pioneer turntable, but I'm not sure what model it is. So,
okay.
So he enjoys listening to LPs a lot.
So his LP costs more than his turntable?
Yeah, isn't
cool.
that something? But he's obsessed with this band, so he follows them around everywhere. That's why he's just. It was worth it to him, and you know, it's his money, so.
Sure, definitely. I'm not questioning. I was just asking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I've tried that. You know, when I meet young people. Actually, last year at Rocky Mountain, this father and son came to me, and they were both like what I do. And the son said he was just getting into vinyl, and his friends come over and listen. And I said, have any of them expressed an interest in doing it? And he said, yeah, a little bit, you know. And I said, how about this? Could you, you know, take them in, you know, and lead them and say, you should get this turntable. And I said, because if you do that, I would write a story about you doing that.
And give them a 10% commission.
Yeah, exactly. And then I followed up with him, and he just lost interest in doing it, because this is kind of like asking him to work, you know.
Yeah.
But it's because I think if every audiophile sort of mentored, you know, a friend or a relative or a coworker and said, who expressed some sort of interest, that it would be a way of doing it. Because, you know, the thing about the audio industry is that high-end audio companies are small companies. Back in the 60s and 70s, you'd see ads for audio in mainstream media. You'd see ads for audio in the New York Times. You'd see sometimes even on television, in Playboy magazine, and most importantly in Rolling Stone, which was then mostly a music magazine. And you'd see ads for turntables and receivers and stuff. So the people who liked music, who are not audiophiles, but they would see it for all this stuff to play music on. It was, you know, pre-internet, so if you wanted to hear music other than the radio, you had to buy an audio system. So, but audio has shrunk, so even not just high-end audio, but Onkyo and Pioneer, they don't have money to advertise in mainstream media. The only mainstream media advertising for audio that I see is Bose, most famously, and now Sonos, a lot of Sonos, Beats, and that's pretty much it. So most high-end companies have no budget to advertise in ways that are outside the audiophile community. So it's sort of inbred. So now I'm going to put you guys on the spot. So have you done anything to reach a younger clientele?
Well, I mean, we've done this at a couple shows too, but we have smaller products that are, you know, the first problem, I guess, with a person new to this industry is sticker shock. So
Right.
things add up quickly. So we have a smaller integrated that we do that's got a built-in DAC and preamp that, you know, we've gone to, I think, 2 or 3 shows where we take in bookshelves, you know, like a Martin Logan Motion 15s, and you paired that, and it's under $2 grand.
Okay.
So you add a source, you can be our Bluetooth receiver to do the new age, but it sounded amazing. You know, we did mini Maggies in the Newport show, and did that, and that was $3 grand, and that sounded ridiculous. And one of the things we do is we offer trade-ins for customers. So if you want to get started with it, you buy this and say it's $1,500 or whatever, and then in 2 or 3 years you want to buy, you know, step it up or go to the, you know, the progression we do in this industry. You can trade it in and get, you know, 80% or more of it back. So
Could you imagine doing a thing, because you have emails of a lot of your customers, right? And you could I'm asking, could you say, you know, thank you for being a customer, blah, 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 and if you bring us a customer, we'll give you a 10% discount or something?
Yeah, I mean, we've always thought about a way we can do that and structure the, I don't know what that's, the branch marketing where you can do that, and rewards type program. And that's definitely a thought that we have moving forward. But, you know, it's hard without budgeting. You know, the people that sell things for $20,000 or $100,000 or more, they have tons of margin for that, you know, and you have to build that in. So at some point, you have to get there before you put the cart before the horse.
But I'm just saying,
it's a thought for sure.
But you already have an established, you know, customer base that likes your products, right? So you say, you know, share it with a friend. Kind of.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea for sure.
Sean, how about you? I mean, your thing with the dirty weekend.
Yeah, the dirty
Pay
weekend.
attention. You know? You're on drugs, I understand.
No,
So-
I'm not, actually. It's not, sadly, right.
Okay. But, you know, reaching a younger, you know, and what I was saying, like sending emails to your customer base of saying, you know, hey, and you have the dirty weekend. You still call it dirty weekend, or it's DW?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit, maybe a slightly different point of view. I think EJ's, and everybody's position is, I think, accurate that I've been hearing. We've been having these talks now for decades.
Yeah.
Kids love music. There's more music made today than all of 1970. So kids are, we don't need to help the kids, right? But kids aren't going to buy what they're not going to buy. So you have to give them, you have to serve the market, not drag the kids into our market.
Yes.
So now our market here at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest is 90% audiophile freaks. You like your music and you want to hear these sets of music on for your comparison, because you want to drop money because you're chasing that dragon. We don't do that. I mean, you come to our room, and I mean, I got my kid up there spinning, and I'm like, oh God, please don't play that, because it sounds like shit, but he loves it, and so cool, let him play it. I mean, I curate a pretty interesting pile of music that sounds impressive, because I still want to sell some things, but not always. And so I offend people. Our market, I offend in the hopes that I'm attractive to a younger crowd.
Right. I picked up on that really early with you, that was part of what you're doing.
And we've been doing that now since my first show, 2001. And we've been cutting across the grain. And I've made really good friends like EveAnna, like Steve, Tim Paravicini. He hung out with us all of 2001 at CES in Vegas. Heard all kinds of awesome stories. That was worth it. Just to pay for that experience, I would do that again. But we have a product. We started recycling our drivers. So the market, you know, kids, they don't know how they're going to pay for college, let alone drop money on HiFi. They're going to go to shows, because you can go to a show every night around a college town for $5, $10 if they're somebody you know. So that's where they're spending, or they're sneaking in. I mean, you know, how you were and how I was when we were kids. So we started recycling drivers because we did an upgrade driver plan, and we did this thing called the Omen Dirty Weekend. It's a floor standing loudspeaker that'll still fit in the back seat of a Corolla, a pair, and a Stingray from Manley Labs, and they could probably still find a Technics 1200. So, you know, look, if they're buying stuff secondhand, they could piece together maybe $1,500 if they're really into it and they really want that experience. It's called the Dirty Weekend because they're recycle drivers and there's a section. It's funny, right? So we continue calling it the Ultimate Dirty Weekend.
And sometimes you chicken out and you call it the DW.
No, that's just abbreviated.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so it's a Dirty Weekend. You know what? I don't need to explain that.
Hey, you do? I thought you were talking about the dirt bikes.
No, I'm not explaining this. I know you're loading it.
How does the Dirty Weekend work? So
The Dirty Weekend now is a fully manufactured from scratch. But how do we get to $1,000 and make any money? Well, first, you give up on making money. And then you make sure that you have a very specific production date and you have everything loaded up. So you're going to make, say, 150 pair, and when they're gone, they're gone. So you minimize problems. So you bang out as many as you can in, say, a 3-week, and you shut down all the rest of your production. You focus on that, and you get it in the box, and you get it out the door. And that's our marketing. So even if we don't make money at $1,000, and we will, I mean, you know, because Sony did this thing. My first Sony, you guys remember that?
Yeah.
It was 70s. It's a little radio. Yeah, they didn't make money, but a bunch of kids bought it. So I help a bunch of kids buy my stuff when they have money. So that's kind of how we
So
try to
have
market.
any of those, have you tracked how many Dirty Weekend customers have moved up?
So HiFi guys, such as ourselves, we'll buy them because they're interested in our sound. Then they'll love it, and then they'll trade up. But usually they don't trade up. We have some marketing hooks to go with it, like 1 year 100% trade-in. But what they do is they give that to their kid, or they put it in their garage, or they give it to their, somebody, and then they buy. But we sell a lot of those to college kids who just got their first job, actually. I would say 20 to 30% of those are going to 25-year-old kids.
Oh, great. Well, then it's working.
Yeah, and they love music. I mean, really, we should just forget it. We should recognize that Cynthia knows more about music than we do.
Right. Certainly her generation's music.
Yeah. Well, they're exposed to, there is no such thing as genre anymore, for example. Genre is dead.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about metal, for example, you could lay the genre in 10-point typeset from end to end and it still wouldn't all fit on this table, just in the metal world, because it's so fractured, which is beautiful, but there's no organizational component, which is the thing I think you've talked about. So, I'm done talking.
And you, EveAnna?
I used to scare all the old audiophile men at the shows playing Rage Against the Machine, which is that's a great sounding record. It's very well recorded. It's punchy. You can, the bass, you can analyze your hi-fi very well with that music. But I remember at CES's, playing that, and it was a great demo for the system, but the older guys would walk by and go, and they were so frightened, I think I've frightened a lot of old audiophiles in my career.
Do you have any really young
good way.
customers under 18?
In the pro world, I've got,
Yeah.
he started when he was 12 and he just made a big study about microphones, and he knows more about microphones than anyone I know.
Wow.
And he lives really close. I've been to dinner at his house and stuff. He's also a child prodigy piano and violin player.
Wow.
And I love seeing him at the NAMM shows and things and supporting his, well, he's growing up now, but yeah.
Yeah, wow.
But audiophiles per se,
Yeah,
not especially, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty edgy with pretty, casual appearance out there and not trying to be a snobby audiophile or whatever. We participate in social media quite a lot, Instagram and a little Twitter and Facebook and all that. So we try. I know some audio companies that have zero social media presence and
I
say,
know
well,
many. Yeah.
hey, how are you going to attract, a lot of people, or how do you get them off their phone when they're on social media and listening to audiophile? Well, at least they'll read about you there.
It's
So-
funny, when I was selling hi-fi, so I stopped selling in 96, I think. And so maybe a couple of years before I stopped, I'm in the store one day, it's a really dead day. This 10-year-old boy walks in and he says, do you sell Creek integrated amplifiers? And I said, yeah. And he said, I want to hear one. And I said, okay. So I brought him in a room. He brought CDs, I think, to listen to. Smart move right away that he brought his own music. And I'm playing the CDs, and I said, so what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm shopping for a HiFi. And I said, really? And I said, just an amplifier or speakers too? And he said, no, I want speakers too. But he knew what he said. We're going to get the amplifier nailed down first, and then I'm going to buy speakers. And I think he bought some monitor audio speakers, I think, little ones. And I said, but how are we doing the payment part of this? And he said, well, when I'm done with all of this, I'm going to call my mom, and she's going to come and buy it. And I said, really? And I said, she's going to let you spend, whatever it was, like $1,100 on this thing. And he said, yeah, we already discussed the budget. He had it all figured out, Because first I thought it was a joke, actually. I thought somebody said, yeah, go in and tell him you're going to buy a Greek integrated amp. But he was for real, and it was amazing.
Getting price shot by a 10-year-old.
Yeah. I just want to tell a story, because, so many amazing things happen to me as a HiFi salesman. But one of my best stories is a guy comes in who's like falling down drunk. And he's just like, you're acting with speakers here?
Is that my ex?
Yeah. So he comes in and he says, I just want a little speaker. And I said, okay. So I take him in the room and I start playing him speakers. And he says, I play it for like 5 seconds. This is a piece of shit. Play something else. So he goes there. I play all the speakers in this room except one pair of speakers. And I wish I could remember what it was. They may have been Proax or something. Maybe they were Proax. Yeah, Proax. So why don't you play those? And I said, well, actually, the reason I haven't played those is because the tweeter's broken, and I got to get a new tweeter. And he says, I don't care, play it. And so I played it. He said, sounds perfect. And it's gone. And I said, it's broken. He said, he wanted it. And I said, I can't sell you a broken speaker. Let me say, if I have it in stock, I'll sell you a working model. It's not going to sound like that, but I hope you like it. So I go downstairs, check the stock. There isn't any. That's the only one. He says, I'll just take that one. And I said, well, when you wake up tomorrow morning, maybe you won't like it. And he said, whatever. So he insisted on buying the broken speaker. And then I wrote on the invoice, this speaker, in big letters, this speaker, the left hand, whatever, this speaker is broken. And, call me up, tell me, and I will, get the tweeter in and we'll fix it. He bought the speaker and never came back, or a pair of speakers, and never came back. It was very weird. And that was another one that felt like a practical joke. You're like, yeah, go in and do that.
I sold an amp to a guy who was living in his truck.
Uh-huh.
And he paid me like $100 a month for 2 years or something. I'm like, how is the priority of this homeless guy to buy this 50-watt stereo amplifier? I don't know.
No house payment.
Yes, no 120-volt power
Yeah,
either.
I was going to say, when he gets it.
He parks somewhere and plugs in.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some weird stuff out there sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think one of the weirdest categories of customers, though, for me, was people who bought audio a piece at a time who never played it. They would buy a speaker without any other part of the system, and I would even sometimes say, I'll lend you. No. And they would buy complete systems, like let's say over a period of a year for $4,000 or $5,000, and then never pick it up. I would call them and say, it's all here. Please take it away. And it was that's very strange. So anyway, I think we're done saying our part. So now it's up to you to offer your ideas of how these guys and the rest of the high-end audio industry can reach younger people. And younger, remember, younger in the audiophile sense means under 50. But let's say under 30. So fire away.
There's a young
And there's a
person
microphone
right
who's going to give somebody's going to give you a microphone to talk. And here he comes.
Testing. Okay, everything I say is going to be anecdotal, so just full disclaimer there. But in my opinion, I consider myself an audiophile. I really love music. But I couldn't tell you what brand of speakers is good. I could tell you what kind of headphones are good, because I listen to headphones almost exclusively, because I don't have anywhere to set up speakers. I don't have anywhere to do that. Now, I could, but the anxiety would set in that, you know, I'm going to get a noise complaint. I can't use these speakers as they were intended. I think that's kind of the harsh reality of audiophile today, is that as a younger generation, you know, with the housing market that's going crazy, insane, with how expensive it is, we don't have our own private space to call our own. We don't have somewhere we can go and set up this magnificent system where, you know, we can have that true audiophile experience.
And EveAnna makes headphone amplifiers.
That's what we're showing here is at CanJam is our brand new headphone amplifier. And already, I just visited our biggest pro audio dealer a couple days ago, and I showed this to him, and we were talking about implementing this audiophile headphone amp that's kind of expensive. It's $4,500 next year. You know, it's kind of expensive. How do we make that? My wheels are spinning. How to make that less expensive? Because this unit's a piece of sculpture. It's got thick metal sides, and it's got a lot of features and stuff. So how do I scale that all down to offer it, A, to the pro audio guy to have in his, you know, he's got his speakers, he's got his recording setup, and he's got a headphone amp for reference. How do I scale that back and offer that? And also, how do I bring the price down so you can buy it? And I'm already thinking about that. But another word you mentioned is anxiety, and I think that goes very well with audiophiles. And I think my job is to, when I'm talking to people, old or new, is to try to quell your anxiety. And I think a lot of people are very anxious in the audiophile world.
I am. Sorry.
And,
Well, I mean, level is all perception too. I mean, you don't have to, TV level sound could sound amazing. You don't have to have it.
I mean, most of us aren't going to be listening at ear-splitting volume
Right.
all the time, but you want that option. You want the option to use your system as you want it, when you want it. And I think that's why a lot of people nowadays choose headphones, because I can listen as loud as I want on headphones, and it's not going to make anybody mad.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm 32 years old. It's kind of my situation. The house is looking further and further away as a viable option. But yeah, a lot of us are into headphones. We are here. We love music, but we're not going to be setting up a home system anytime soon.
That's why there's a product like, you know, we just released a new headphone amp that has Class A headphone output stage and stuff, and there's also a pre-out. So you can buy it now for your headphones and then add an amplifier later, you know, then to expand upon it. But that's, you know, DAC, pre-headphone, all that stuff built in. So.
Who's next? Okay. You.
We on? Yeah, we are. Okay. I'm an ancient audiophile, in case you didn't recognize that. And some of you know that I am in the industry as well. And so I'd like to throw out a challenge, and it's not so much a question, it's a comment. And when I think I always knew I was an audiophile, but I really started getting into this in the late 60s, early 70s, and the landscape was much different. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and by the time I was in junior high, I was a radio station groupie. So I'm in and out of the radio stations, but the audiophile community was much different, and I got exposed to the audiophile community through essentially the industry, broadcast industry. And what we had that I don't see today at all is mentoring. And last weekend, I was running the lecture session at Burning Amp in San Francisco, and this discussion came up again. And so we had all these people that were building, you know, cute little quirky amplifiers, and there was the question of, well, how do we get new people involved in this? And there's this one young gentleman behind me. He's probably in his 20s. And the first question out of his mind, we've just gone over this circuit topology thing, and he says, well, I'm doing tube amps. Okay, so Roger Majeski was talking. I know EveAnna knows Roger. And he said, Mr. Majeski, I have a question. When do I use the green wire and when do I use the red wire? And I mean, that literally comes down to mentoring. So the challenge that we threw out there at Burning Amp was mentor someone. And, you know, I look back at my early days of being an audiophile, and I had the guys in the radio station. I mean, I could stack wax, I could keep my mouth shut, I could make coffee, and I could fix a cable. But that's about all I knew about audio. And they were exposing me to stuff. And then I had numerous friends. I mean, I'm not even in my, you know, my mid-teens. And I had friends in their 50s and 60s who were saying, come on, kid, we're going to a concert. Come on, kid, we're going to go hang out at an audio store. And then it was like, okay, so now we've shown you our music. Why don't you show me yours?
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, mentor.
Go forth and multiply.
Exactly.
Next question.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of ideas. The first idea is, why don't we have dealers hang out at figure skating competitions and dance competitions and gymnastics competitions, because there you've got a bunch of girls and women who love music and are always looking for music to interpret. So if you go there and hang out with headphones and basic speakers and things like that, playing music.
But how would that work? You know,
so
Miss,
picture,
please step over here.
Yeah,
Listen to
well,
my headphone
exactly, because
amplifier.
they
Like
have,
soliciting,
I'd
right?
be
So-
terrified if
so-
I were an
and
ice skater with that showing up.
I got here because of
all
figure
these
skating,
creepy
so let me
guys
show you
here.
how this works. The way this works is that let's say you go to a figure skating competition, there are tons of people selling things. There are
Okay.
people there with money to drop. They're buying skates, they're buying little hair thingies, they're buying
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And so if you say, play your competition music on these speakers or on these headphones,
Okay.
here you go. And then also market open back headphones to young parents, because then you can hear the baby monitor and your music at the same time.
Okay. I never thought of that one.
All right?
Okay.
So first thing I want to say, and this is partly counterpoint to his, I have had the privilege of growing up in this world. My parents are audiophiles. I was at RMAF the first year when I was little.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I've been part of the show since
Right.
then.
Yeah.
And I have had the same question you guys do. How do I sell this hobby to my friends? And the mentorship thing is really key. I brought two of my friends with me. One of them I met at college in South Dakota. The other one I met online. And the first time we ever met in person was here. So the mentorship thing is really big.
Especially among your age group.
Right.
Would be even better, right? Yeah, okay.
And the can't remember what they call them, but like getting into YouTube channels and getting people in the social media spaces talking about hi-fi audio and getting people to go listen to stuff. But even more than that, trying to people again who have the systems, who have the headphones, share them with your friends. I'm also fairly lucky to be in the tech industry and fairly good at my job, so I make decent money. I just bought a condo. I'm 28.
Wow.
And that's not uncommon in the tech industry where younger
Right.
people are making more money, but I do have some of the same concerns. So I specifically bought my condo so that I have 2 exterior walls.
Good for you.
So there are ways around it, but that kind of stuff, like I grew up in the industry, so I think about those things.
Right.
When I'm looking at a condo, I'm like, okay, I know that the sound tends to go straight
Right.
and maybe a little to the side. So if I have 2 exterior walls and I also have retail below me that's closed,
Right.
I don't have to worry so much. I
Yeah,
only have to
right,
worry
right.
about my neighbors upstairs.
Uh-huh.
But educating that kind of stuff, and even the stuff that's not just audio, but how do you enjoy how do you enjoy this beautiful, these beautiful
The
audio
stuff,
systems?
yeah.
And also, what are you listening for? Because another thing that I tend to do, and this is something that I've had fairly successful, I come to the show every year, and I have friends in other states. So if they start to get interested, the first question I ask, what do you listen to? It helps that I have a fairly broad taste, and I can listen to their music on different headsets and listen for what they're listening for. But before I come and listen here for somebody, I spend like an hour asking them about their music and about what they like about their music.
But you know, it's funny because what you're describing is what I used to do for a living when I was selling hi-fi. You're essentially selling.
Right.
Right.
But for my generation, it's more, word of mouth is more important because, I mean, if you look at like the gaming industry as a perfect industry to look at for our hobby is very similar to gaming PCs.
Okay, but much smaller.
Yes, but in the way that it's marketed and that kind of stuff, and what would be successful, because gaming, like I have lots of friends that spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a computer just so that they can play their games and get that last few pixels to look that much cleaner.
Wow.
Which is a very similar concept as what we do with our audio. And one of the big things in the gaming industry, and one of the big ways that like headphone manufacturers, mics, keyboards, they go talk to YouTubers. They get a YouTuber to review their products.
Right.
And even if it's like not a reviewer, and it's just Linus Tech Tips is an amazing one for just random PC knowledge. And he will, like occasionally, a manufacturer will go to him and say, hey, can you look at this? But the key there, and one of the other things that works with the YouTubers and is why it works, they aren't paid by the manufacturers. There is no expectation, and there have been a couple of manufacturers that had a bad product and did that, and they got torn apart. So that kind of thing may help, and may help with the mentorship, because the YouTubers are doing that. That is a lot of what they do. They're called content creators because their whole job is just to create content.
Right, and influence.
And educate and influence and stuff like that.
Does that make sense to you guys?
I get approached by YouTubers all the time and like, hey, do you do endorsements? And I'm like, yeah, I think you're great. No, we do personal affirmations. You're a good person and everybody likes you. No, they do. They want free gear sometimes.
I understand.
To do these YouTube.
So we got time for one or two more questions.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I have a direct question for the panel. That's Cynthia. Your answer as a consumer will probably be different versus the manufacturers, but the panel being about the future is now. What, as manufacturers, are you any specific things that you're doing as manufacturers, planning for the future or anticipating for growth, or what trends will be to ensure the longevity of your company, but also to attract new interest in this industry? And then, Cynthia, as a consumer, are there things that you think about in relation to this industry, or buying music or buying equipment that are very future-minded?
Why are you looking at me?
Well, you asked the manufacturer question first.
Ladies first.
All right. Well, again, I think being a little more edgy and purposeful with our marketing ideas and on social media, I've spoken about this now, and also in product development, recognizing, hey, it's time for a dedicated headphone amplifier. Starting with the expensive one, because we want to give you something to aspire to, and then I'm going to give you something that you can afford. So product development and marketing, and then my own personal behavior, being accessible to people. People can email me or call. Well, I prefer email actually, but you know, and ask me questions. Ask me about the red wire or the green wire. It's fine. I'll say, just go listen, whichever one sounds better. Green for Earth is a good one with the yellow stripe.
He wanted to know which one was filament, which one was That's why I said in three.
Yeah, we have PC board tube sockets with no wires. So. Yeah, I don't know.
Point to point.
So we're working on a few things. You can't see the future, but close, near to hand. We see the fusion, merging of playback and performance in very key sectors. A lot in the metal world. So we want pop-up speakers for pop-up concerts that they can also take back to their studio apartment, stick in their studio apartment. These speakers have to fit in the back of a car, 2 of them, and they have to play loud as hell, cleanly, and with a high degree of fidelity, and they can't be more than $2,000 for a pair. So Gene Cervinsky, Sir One Vega, I mean, he built his company on that platform. As he once said, 5 million black guys can't be wrong. We think something like that is happening again, but it's of course not racial. Yeah, we see this merging thing happening of pro and playback that may be different this time, and so we're working on that.
Yeah, I think the same. And then as time goes on, I think people are going more for simplicity. So they probably don't want to buy 20 different boxes. The more you can compact it, make it lighter, all those things, I think is where the trend is going. So portability, I think, is probably key on all of it.
And your question for me is, how is high-end audio looking for the future of consumers, correct?
More like what do you think your consumer action in HiFi will be?
I don't know yet. So I've been doing lots of different things. Steve just had me do an Audiophiliac for a day video, so that got me some exposure to more of the high-end side of things, and I've been watching his videos. I've been shadowing with Alan Sercom and Chris Martins from HiFi Plus to see the publishing side of things. And so I'm trying to get, my feet wet in every side of the business to see where exactly I want to go and what I want to do in it. I think mainly what I want to do is I want to get the exposure out to young people, because without young people, we don't have a future in high-end audio. And you can see it either way. You can see it as this is a niche thing and it's going to go away, or you can be optimistic about it and you can actually take action and get it out there to the young people so that we do have someone to pass it on to. And I think that exposure is key. I also think affordable components is key. But, what Sean touched on with college kids not being able to afford a lot of high-end components, there's a couple of things there. There's a lot of college kids who are paying their way into college. So they have student loans they're paying for, and that's their priority. But then there's also those college kids that their parents are paying for their college, right? And they're spending their money on other things, like expensive bicycles, European vacations, and other things. So
they're spending mom and dad's money.
Yes. I can speak to that one.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, but whatever spending money they have, they're spending on other things, right? So getting the exposure out there so that they know what high-end audio is all about is key. And that's what I believe is what's going to help drive getting the younger generation interested.
I think that's a good way to end. So thank you guys for showing up, and thank you guys for showing up.
Thanks.
And we'll do this again next year, I hope.